Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. We're going to be working on a big Penn reel today, but before we get started, a special shout out to Tom. Tom he's in Tennessee. He just sent me this. He claims it's the world's smallest fly reel. An interesting little thing. Told me to make it a paperweight. I don't think it's heavy enough to even be a paperweight for those of us who remember paperweights. But he said put it on your rear view mirror, if you will. Make it a little hang like... well, for whatever. Kind of cute little reel. Simple enough. Thinking ice fishing is what I'm thinking. Right? A small container. But hey, thanks, Tom. It's always part of my curiosity collections that I hang around my shop. And I will certainly give that one a nice position. Today we're going to be working on a SpinFisher VI. This is the SpinFisher VI, a very large reel. It's the 8500 size. Number one question I always get with these reels from folks is, my bail doesn't trip. How come? Well, it's because it's a manual bail. That's the way it's designed. But it's surprising how many times people will either buy the reel new and not read the instructions, or buy the reel used and tell them they got a good deal on it because, well, the bail didn't trip. Okay, well, somebody didn't know something there. At any rate, we're going to take this reel apart completely. We're going to show you how it's made. We're going to service the reel. This one's one of the reels that Joe brought in. And, well, we'll get this one fishing again. Oh, those of you that watch the channel and have subscribed, I appreciate that. And if you're new to the channel, or if you haven't subscribed yet, I want to encourage you to do that. If you like fishing reel service and repair, if you like learning about fishing reels, seeing some unusual ones like the one that Tom just sent in there, and well, any other things that have to do with fishing, I try to cover a lot of that and bring you up to speed on what I know, so that, well, you can know it too, what I do, so, well, you can do that too. So if you have subscribed, thank you. If you haven't subscribed, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And, well, you never know what you'll find on this channel. The cleaned out the bowl. We'll service this later. I do like to put that rubber band on there. It keeps this from happening, but unfortunately it's still happening. And this reel, I don't see the indent for the line, so I guess you do what Joe did, you tape it up. But regardless, we'll get that done with. This is a SpinFisher VI model. It's not the largest one in the line. There's actually a 10,000 size reel out there. These are big surf casting reels, big trolling reels for big fish. And, well, they're nicely made. We're going to show you the take apart, and we do that by taking out all of the exterior pieces and parts first. So we have to open up the case below in order to remove the axle shaft and the top end. We're going to start with, well, there's I like the flat-breaded screwdrivers to break the seal initially. A lot of times I find that blue Loctite on the factory ones, so that first turn may be a little bit hard, and then it just usually is a normal kind of a thing. I'll switch over here to a Phillips head screwdriver. We should be able to finish removing the screws. I want to encourage you to have a thought about what you're going to do with the parts as you remove them before you start removing them. I just got a project in, and well, the project is a reel in a bag project. It's a Cast King Sharky. I hope to get to that soon. It's a bag of parts. Well, I don't know if the parts weren't identified on the way out. I don't know if they just had trouble with the reassembly. Not quite sure what it is, but you can avoid that by planning what you're going to do with the parts, and, well, more importantly, doing it after you plan it, and also taking pictures along the way. Now, I take pictures with the video camera here, and that's not all the time. Of course, I do a lot of reels, don't do the videos on, but the videos will help you, as will the schematic for the reel. Here's that blue Loctite I was referring to. The blue Loctite is commonly referred to as the cool Loctite, and supposedly you can do that without getting into trouble. I generally do not recommend the Loctite on fishing reels. Might be good to hold it in place, might be too good that you can't get them out of place once they're held in. There's a couple of shim washers that go on this main gear. They're stuck to the case, so know that. We have those rubber shielded bearings in here. I think the Penn's metal word for this is Halcon or something like that. So just be aware of that. You'll also note we have a little rubber gasket on here. That's another effort at waterproofing the reel. And that makes sense. If this is going to be in the surf, you want to get this sealed as much as possible. This has got the IPX5 sealed rating. And well, Penn's tried to do a good job of locking all of this down. And I'll show you some other places where they've done that as well. So first thing we want to do is remove the axle shaft. That axle shaft is held into the crosswind block by 2 screws. We did that, then pull that up and remove it. And what I generally like to do as I remove the pieces and parts, clean them right off. I did mention a parts strategy before. I use a parts tray, and I have 8 corners in this parts tray, so most of the time I try to work by sub-assemblies and dedicate a little corner of the tray to each. This is our crosswind block. Good place here to take the pictures. This one's a little bit hard to install upside down, but I've seen these things installed upside down before. So if you want to take a picture, note the orientation of it, and that will save you some angst later if you go attempt to put it in the wrong way. Again, I don't remember the exact name of the metal that they're using here. I think it's Halcon or something like that. Another kind of a alloy. They're nice gears. Don't break them. They're very expensive. I think the Penn gears run $50 or $60. So just be aware of that. Put those shim washers back on. Put the gear in the tray. Just looks like the reel hasn't been serviced. We can see the runoff of the old grease and that the old grease is dirty. Again, we'll get as much of this out as we can. I'm going to remove that gasket there just to not get it tangled in anything. And then the last piece below here is the oscillation gear. That's held in place by a big screw. I'll take that out. There's a little stud. I like to kind of grab the stud if I can and pull it out that way. Wrong pliers. There we go. And then we'll clean that gear off. When you do your cleaning, make sure you check. There's a Teflon washer on the back side of this. There's a metal bushing inside this, so don't lose any of those pieces. Check your teeth. Make sure they're clean. These are devoid of grease and that. Check them all. Make sure that there's a nice tight uniformity to it, that they're not chipped or broken or out of alignment. To take the top off, then we're going to take the 3 screws out of the retaining collar. Again, I'll find another section of my parts tray for these. There's a couple of things underneath here. This is housing the nut that's holding the rotor on. There will also be a little ferrule for the axle shaft. We want to remove that. First, 3 of those. Then we take the collar off. Take a picture here. I've seen this washer wind up underneath. It doesn't belong there. It belongs on the top. And also notice that this is the flat side. There is a side that has a little bit of a ridge to it, if I remember this reel. Alright, we want to grab I believe that's a 15 millimeter nut. Either use an open wrench or use a ratchet to free it up. I like to just turn it off by hand after that. We have another seal below that and a flat side to this. Then this is that little tube, the ferrule that I was referring to, that goes inside that pinion gear. It just wants to run away on me. That's why a parts tray is good. You don't knock the pieces and parts around. We can remove this now. Again, manual bail. You're going to flip it and then flip it back after you cast. It does have a little bit of the same settings as the automatic bails. So you will see a leg under here that does move up and down. But when you do that, you're going to notice there isn't a ramp here below. So it's not going to work. It's not going to auto trip. All right, just want to clean that up. This is a secondary anti-reverse system here. You're going to notice all of the ridges in the inside of the rotor. That's for a secondary fail-safe, if you will, to take the stress off of the anti-reverse clutch once the fish is engaged. This is how it works. This is an eccentric arm. Underneath that we have an eccentric and a spring. As you're reeling, you can notice that's pulled in, and as you go to stop or back, this will come back out. That's when these two ridges here will intersect with that inner part of the rotor and provide that secondary anti-reverse. I'm going to remove this, and here's your piece underneath, your eccentric piece. Put that into the parts tray. Now we have 3 screws that are holding on the pinion gear assembly. You can remove these with a Phillips head screw driver. And if I haven't said it already, when you're removing multiple screws, somebody's alarm is going off. Remove those 3 screws. Make sure that they're all the same size. The other thing to do, take a picture here. You're going to notice that this plate that's retaining the inner pinion gear and bearings and the like is not symmetrical. Okay, find another corner of my tray for this. Those 3 screws are the same size. Notice the plate. The plate's got kind of an accentuated V, almost a flat. That's what's facing your ball gear. Okay, this should just pull out now, and this is every Penn, pretty much so. Every Penn's, at least in the SpinFisher family, stack. It's also the stack for the Battle, the Fierce, the Pursuit. It's a, I guess it's a time-tested design, and well, if you can work your way through this reel or those reels, you can work your way through the others. Just some are bigger than others. The rest of this case you don't need to touch. Let's take a look at this then. We have a rubber seals bearing up top. We have a carrier. And on that carrier there's an indentation on the one side and kind of a proud portion on the other. The indentation faces low. We have our anti-reverse clutch and the inner sleeve. Notice on the bottom of this one, it's plastic. On the top of it is metal. The metal's going to face out. Another rubber sealed bearing, and now we have our pinion gear, which we want to clean. I recommend just a hard brush. That doesn't have to be a brass or a metal or a steel brush. But I use that brush and a paper towel to pull through on that, clearing all of the dirt and debris and old grease from the tracks. Then we do the same thing we just did on that oscillation gear. Check all of those ridges, check all of the grooves, make sure that they're not damaged, pushed aside, bent, etc. Just found one the other day. It was just getting hung up, and everybody's just kind of, why in the world is that? I checked the teeth on my main gear. I checked my oscillation gear teeth. I checked all these. And I asked them if they checked the teeth on the pinion gear. And sure enough, there was a piece of line caught in one of the grooves of the pinion gear. And that's what was causing the erratic performance. So, check them all. All right. These bearings have those rubber seals on them, so kind of hard to get any oil or greases in there. That goes on first. You do not do anything with your anti-reverse clutch. There's no oiling there. That's a friction device. Leave it dry. And as we mentioned, we have the one with the insert or the depression in it. That's the one that goes down. And bring it right back in, assuming this is clean, which it is. Set it in place. Make sure that it lays low in there. The top end of that bearing should be flush with the outer case. We have a seal on the back side if you've lost that seal somewhere. And then remember what we said about this. The flat side faces that anti-reverse dog. Go to your parts tray, grab the 3 screws. And those of you that know me and little screws know that this may be a little of an experience. This one at least has a little bit where you can grab the starter. When we have to go in and put a small screw without any kind of recess like this, it's an adventure for me. Guess we all have our little challenges in life. All right, that's the first one. Here's the second one. Take your time. There's no rewards given for speed. Have a plan and execute the plan. And again, that parts tray makes it so easy for me. My parts tray strategy is organized chaos, but I've been doing it a while now, but I don't think I ever had much more of a strategy than that. They all wind up in the parts tray, and somehow I managed to find them and get them back onto the reels. Okay, that goes on. Next up is our eccentric piece. You want to get that over, and you need to make sure that the point from that anti-reverse dog is in the groove, like that. All right, with that done then, we can move on to reinstall the rotor. First up is the rotor itself. Bring that on. Next up is that little red washer we had mentioned. It's an O-ring. Again, another seal piece. Before you put the nut cap on, put the little ferrule into the pinion gear. Then bring your nut cap on. Remember, there's 2 sides of this. There's a flat side and there's a raised side. That raised side is going up. Tighten this down. Right now it's a good time to spin it. Make sure it spins nice and free and easy. If it doesn't, then you've trapped something somewhere. Go back, take it off, relook at your project. Before I go any further, I want to grab a little cleaning cloth here, if I can find it. It ran away from me. Just have to make another one. So for cleaning cloths, I use kitchen scrubbies, and I simply just kind of cut them into like 1.5 2-inch squares. And I find that kitchen scrubbies got just the right amount of abrasiveness, if you will, to get rid of the film on reels without causing any abrasiveness that's going to scar or scrape or do something else to the reel itself. All right, we've cleaned that up. Fresh paper towel now to wipe that down. And again, this is Penn's Rod and Reel Cleaner. I like it. It works. Whether you're removing fish scales or just general buildup of debris, film and the like, it seems to do a nice job. Try to put that somewhere where they don't run away from me. All right, next up then, we want to do a couple of things. We'll install the oscillation gear. We're kind of working backwards from the way that we worked originally, taking it off. So I guess in accounting terms, this would be LIFO, last in, first out. I'll have to adjust that naming just a little bit, but you know what I mean. All right, grease all the sides, the teeth, the inner ring there. Point your stud down, and then find that little screw. It's going to hold that in place. Now some of these reels don't have that screw in the center, and it's easy to overlook that screw just based on prior experience. So just make sure that you take those pictures along the way, that you identify the ones that need the screw, and don't leave it in your parts tray. But if you did leave it in your parts tray, that's fine, because that's the idea behind the parts tray. You'll look over there and you say, wait a minute, there's a piece in there that I didn't account for, and I better go do it now. All right, this is a nice heavy gear. Again, I'll find the right pronunciation of this metal, but it's another alloy. Everybody seems to have a new alloy now for the main gears on the upper end reels. The lower end reels are still either aluminum gears, or I guess we would commonly call it pot metal, or some other kind of alloys in there. Get a good amount of grease onto the teeth and onto the back gear, which is going to drive that oscillation gear, and onto the shaft that's going to ride inside the inner bearing. Once that's all together, that goes in. A reminder that you do have shim washers on that main stack there. All right, time to grab the axle shaft. I almost forgot. See, you gotta stay on top of yourself here sometimes. You want to put the rubber washer and that hold down. Over tighten it just a tad, and the hold down. You're not going to be able to get this on after you put the axle shaft in, so make sure you do it before. All right. Through the tray to get those 3 screws that are holding that down. And this is where putting them in corners helps, because there's other screws that we've taken out along the way, and you just don't want to confuse those screws. Well, while I'm doing this, if you have any questions on this fishing reel or any reel, if you leave them in the comment section, I will try to answer those questions for you. The questions don't have to be relative to Penn. It can be anything. It could be a general question. Maybe you want to know where you can buy one of these. Want to know a little bit more about the history of the company, whatever. Just leave them there. I do try to answer the questions in the morning, so if you're watching this in the evening, don't expect an answer until about 9 o'clock Eastern time. Once you have that clamp on, we can bring the axle shaft down, hold your crosswind block, flat side faces you, and then bring that in, centering it so that the holes align with the holes in the crosswind block. Time for the 2 screws for this. Some of you may be wondering how that screw is sticking onto the screwdriver here. One, it's the right screwdriver for the screw, so there's some natural hold there. And there's a little bit of grease left over. I tend to put a dab of grease onto the screwdriver tip to kind of help me hold them down. As I mentioned, I have some trouble with that. All right, with all of that in, then again, rubber seal bearing. You don't need to do anything there. Make sure when you put this on, you have nice tight seams. Oops, that was an oops. And see, this is where the parts tray helps. Can you remember what I forgot? There's a seal that we took off. And I guess my mind was telling me I left it in when I took it off the first time. I don't know, maybe. We gotta make sure we put that back in. There's a groove this fits in, sort of like a valve gasket on a car. Just need to make sure it's in that groove. That's going to help with keeping this reel watertight. Now we can put this on. Alright, again, make sure that that seam is nice and tight. If you can see any red, you don't have that gasket set properly. Alright, now we can put the screws back in. What I like to do is alternate these in a cross pattern. There's 4 screws, so we'll go low on one, go high on the next one over on the other side. This will keep equal torsion on your case. And we'll come back down and then go over again. And that'll lock this up. 2 more of these. One below will do. And then we'll do the other one. Then we'll go service this spool, put it all together, give it a test. These are built to last. You can see the material inside, the quality of the gears, and you can see the metal jacketed frame as opposed to a graphite frame. That's going to take the flex out of the reel, and you can catch some very big fish on this. And it's a bigger brother. This is the 8500, and then you got the 10,000 or 10,500. I don't remember the exact size on that one, but those 2 big reels are big fish. Okay, set that aside for a moment. Let's go do the drag service in here. This is HT100. Tells you right on the spool. This one has standard metal washers, and it uses the HT100 drag washers as the eared washers in the case. I'm going to pull this down and out. Now these have the option to be greased or not greased. Looks like these were greased from the factory, so we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to use Cal's Universal Dry Grease, but if you don't have that, you don't need to get it. Just use your regular fishing reel grease. Alright, I put a little bit on there, I wipe it down. You don't want it globbed on there, you want to be able to see the cross hatches. These have the points on them, as I mentioned, that will be acting as the eared washer. Before you reinstall them, clear the dirt out of this, and then go ahead and put the first one in. First one in is a fabric washer. This is a 6 drag system. All of the metals in this one are the same. So just make sure they're nice and clean. You alternate the fabric washer with the metal washer. And we're going to do this 2 more times. You can see I use that gloved hand to wipe it in. That's really to maintain the flexibility of it. It doesn't promote slipping or anything like that. Line that up, put that one into the cavity. Next metal one, again, make sure they're nice and clean. And the last of the drag washers, again, do the same one more time. Seat that. Last of the metals. Bring the retention clip in. There's a groove in the reel where that retention clip sits. Just start one side. It's not a heavy clip, so just start one side, bend it around, work it in so that it seats properly. That's all you need to do on the drag service. This little tag is bothering me here. It always seems to work its way out no matter how I do this. And then when you go to reset the or test the reel, you get that little tag kind of flopping around. There we go, got it. All right, let's put that back on. Before we do that, we can take that pad again. You don't need a lot of cleaner. Actually, there's some residual on here that's going to be fine. Do that inside and out on the top. While I've got it out there, we'll do the body. We did the rotor already. Now we can set the rotor or the spool onto the rotor. Let's grab that drag adjuster knob. All we have to do is put the handle on and see how we did. Tighten it up. sure it holds. And then when you're not fishing the reel, back it off a couple of turns. You don't want that acting as a vise, tamping down those washers, pushing out all the grease that you just put on there, and well, resulting in less useful life. All right, before I go too much further, I'm going to just put a spray of penetrating oil onto the little knob there for flexibility, just to help loosen that up. Tighten that in. One more shot of an oil or a penetrating oil where the handle is, and let's see how we did. Well, there you go. That's a nice smooth operating reel. Again, we have a manual bail. It's not going to trip. You're gonna have to put that back by yourself. But that's the Penn 8500 SpinFisher, Penn SpinFisher VI. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did enjoy it, please like the video. And again, if you haven't subscribed, I welcome your subscription. Please subscribe and use that notification button. That'll let you know when we're posting. I want to take a minute to thank our police, fire, safety, rescue, and all that are involved in keeping the public out of harm's way. And I want to thank all the viewers that have stayed around and watched this and continue to support the channel. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody a great day and lots of fun fishing.